I discovered something that made change and growth in my life different than all those other attempts I've been trying for years. Anyone else experience that? You try to make nice, life-altering shifts in your life, and you find that you just sort of slip back to your old ways. Well, I think I've figured out how to identify what sustainable growth looks like, and I hope that what I share today helps you create sustainable growth in your life too. All right, the secret to self-growth is quitting self-care. Wait, what? Didn't you just make a video on self-care and how important it is? Yes, and self-care is important, but in order to maximize self-growth, you can't focus on self-care. You'll see what I mean. Prior to making this shift from self-care to self-growth, I would usually find myself enjoying a deep dive into projects for a few months at a time. I considered these projects like self-care projects because they were fun and enjoyable. They gave me something to look forward to, and they were good for my general well-being. For example, I learned to snowboard and focused on eating the best balance of macronutrients. I also practiced yoga for a few months and took on a 28-day challenge to do yoga 28 days out of the month. And I also took some time to learn chess before the Queen's Gambit came on. I would consider all of these projects as part of self-care. The problem is that they never really stuck. And it turns out that self-care projects just don't lead to sustainable self-growth. And when I made this shift, I didn't realize I was going to start a self-growth journey at the time. But I think I'm actually in it to win it now. My most recent self-care activity before figuring out this new path was playing Magic the Gathering. It was a great way to meet new people and spend time out of the home, giving me and my family important time apart. It also stimulated my mind, challenging me with problem solving, how to beat the next player, build my deck, form my arsenal, create some defense solutions. Plus, it let me play in a new little world filled with adorable creatures to play with. Ultimately, it was a distraction. After a while, I started to wonder, what was I doing? I'm not going to make a living off of playing Magic. And while it's fun, what does it take time away from? I realized that it was taking time away from me and what I want in life. While I was learning that Magic is fun, but not exactly representative of what I wanted in life, I was also learning about and coming to truly understand that time is our greatest asset, and it's also a non-renewable resource. We never get back yesterday. We can generally undo what we did, but we never get back the time itself. Unless you are super into questioning the bounds of time, like in that movie Arrival, which I thoroughly enjoyed. After I started to realize that Magic was more a distraction than a self-care practice, I started to look into a new self-care practice, as I usually do. This time I started to deep dive in the stock market. And while playing the stock market has led me to self-growth, the stock market itself is not the most important thing here. The real key to finding sustainable growth is finding something that truly feeds you. And feeds a lot of you, not just one or two areas of your life. Now, before I keep going, I want to just quickly give a shout out to reallifetrading.com. They're a really amazing community and have taught me so much. So if you'd like to go visit them, you can check out the link in the description below. Otherwise, they do have a free week coming up. So if you'd like to check that out, and if you enjoy their services and sign up, please feel free to drop my name, which is Ellen, to let them know that I referred you. Now, when I talk about feeding yourself in a lot of areas, I'm talking about the 8 dimensions of wellness, including physical, emotional, intellectual, social, spiritual, vocational, financial, and environmental. All of these areas are incredibly important to your overall health and well-being. The more areas your self-care can address, the more likely that self-care project can turn into a self-growth journey. Let me give you a couple of examples of self-care practices that were helpful, but didn't quite transition me from a self-care project to a self-growth journey. At the beginning of the pandemic, I got really into completing Shaun T's Insanity Max 30. This activity fed me physically and emotionally, and maybe a little socially since I was doing it with my spouse. But it didn't really help me in any other areas. If this is making sense, please like this video and subscribe for more content like this. Another example would be when I started cooking meals around the world based on what I was watching. I was super into Handmaid's Tale at the time, and so a friend and I would watch it together and have dinner based on one of the countries in the show. Awesome, right? This totally checked off boxes in physical, emotional, intellectual, and social dimensions. And I grew as a cook, a friend, and a critical thinker through eating this food and discussing this show. This was self-care and some self-growth, but not quite the big shift. When you are ready, take a moment to reflect on what self-care project you're into right now. If the project feeds you in at least 5 of the 8 dimensions of wellness, this might be the one. Stick with it. If it checks off 3 or 4 dimensions and could possibly check off more, decide if you're willing to dive any further to turn your self-care project into a self-growth journey. If you are, awesome, great, go get it. If not, accept what you've learned. Find gratitude in the experiences you've had and start considering other projects. Self-care distractions are essential to finding self-growth. The distractions teach us about what we like and maybe what we don't really love, and they give us new experiences. They're the building blocks to your self-growth journey. Once you find something that feeds you in 5 or more dimensions of wellness, then your self-care gets easier and smaller. Suddenly, or slowly, what you were doing for self-care becomes bundled together and not so disjointed. Now, instead of having to make sure I work out, check in with friends, read a book, and meditate for 20 minutes, I just need to make sure I spend time with my self-growth project and work out to feed 6 out of 8 dimensions of wellness. I'm actually okay at environmental wellness, and I am sort of, really, in the middle of some existential crisis and spiritual investigation. So be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on an important topic and conversations some of us try to avoid but really need more information on. Share about your self-growth journey or your latest self-care project in the comments below. Thank you for watching. Please hit like and subscribe if you're curious to learn more. If this content adds value to your life, click the bell to get a notification whenever I upload new videos. Until next time, live intentionally, love fiercely, and lead courageously.